All right, everybody, good morning and welcome to the Essential Credentials, episode 32. And we got a pretty exciting one lined up here. We're going to take an in-depth dive into the market. And who better to help me do that than returning guest Rodney?
What's up?
And it happened. Joe is on the podcast.
What's going on, guys?
First
time for everything.
That's right. That's right. Really happy to have you guys here. I mean, I'm sure you both noticed, as I have, the market right now for sports cards in general, especially basketball and baseball, have been skyrocketing. I think more than just collectors have started noticing that. I mean, what has been your guys' reaction the last couple months here? Is this something you both expected?
No, I didn't. When I first started seeing how the economy was starting to shut down, I was thinking about back to like what happened in 2008, and things didn't really slow down then. But I mean, of course you have your stimulus checks, and where people are getting paid sometimes more than they would on their normal job from unemployment, and then everyone kind of gets lost in this. This is still tax return season, and for whatever reason, people are spending more money on the hobby, and whether it's because they're at home, they're not working as much, who knows? I don't know. But I mean, it's booming everywhere. Singles, inserts, parallels, rookies, like of every player. So like, for example, McGuire, his 87 tops is like a PSA 10 just sold for like $475. And then like the beginning of May, it was like $50.
Right.
So, and that's just, and McGuire hasn't always been like the most popular guy. He's got a lot of followers and fan base, but I mean, it's shooting up, and maybe that's because of his upcoming documentary. I don't know, but right. I'm surprised by it. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm shocked to see it, but then again, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense to me. What do you think, Joe?
What about you, Joe? I mean, yeah, is this kind of caught you by surprise a little bit?
I mean, I have a friend that like he works for the government. He kind of was like, oh, this coronavirus before it kind of hit was like, this is going to affect the economy huge. And I'm like, I didn't think it was going to crash cards. I figured like it would I didn't really know what to expect, but I didn't expect the crazy boom like it did. But then when you factor in, like Rodney said, people are getting unemployment plus 600 on top in some states. Mine is one of them. So a lot of people are literally making probably double what they were making at their jobs. Nothing's open. There's nowhere else to really go. Now it's starting to open up, but I mean, we'll see in the next couple months how it plays out. But like even Griffey's 89 upper deck. I was never a rookie guy, so I couldn't cash out on the the tripling of some of these cards. But Griffey forever was $400, $300-400. Then it was $500. Yep. Then last year it was $800, which was crazy. And then all of a sudden $1,600 to $2,000. So
yeah, that's for PSA 10, right?
For PSA 10s, yeah.
For PSA 10s, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, you mentioned another thing I forgot, that people, when they're not going out and spending money on movies or dinners or taking their kids out wherever it may be, it's like they're at home and they have more money to spend. You're getting more money in. And then also, I mean, maybe it's just the simple fact of you're being at home and you don't really have anything to do. So you surf the internet and you're like, well, okay, I'll shop online. I guess like the people who shop online a lot, it's like something that we're experiencing now for the first time, where people who don't really do that have as much time to do. They're just buying stuff online even easier.
Right. Well, and it was interesting too, because, when we did our first podcast, once this hit, I had made the prediction of two things. I predicted more cards would come out on the market, which I think all three of us can agree. Some of the rare stuff has been showing up a lot more lately, because I figured people would kind of panic and say, okay, I need money just in case I get stuck at home and lose my job. And they didn't know what was going to happen. So that happened. But then I said, well, I think because of the oversaturation of the market, prices are going to be lower. So I'm curious to hear from both of you. I'll ask you first, Joe. Why have the prices gone up so much so fast? Whereas, because there's more cards available. So why?
I think it's direct. Well, it's supply and demand. So just because there's more cards doesn't mean, like, if there's 10,000 people that want it. Look at basketball. Some of the stuff numbered to 500 in the 90s is worth more than stuff numbered to 10 in baseball. It's just more people want it. Somebody showed me a PSA 10 Jordan the other day of platinum portraits. I'm like, what is that, $20? He's like, no, it's worth $10,000. I'm like, I would have never known. It's crazy to me. but also alternative investments. Like that's kind of the kick I've been on for a while. Gary Vee talks about it. Like you can make 800% on a card, where in the stock market over the year, you're lucky to get 10%. And then the stock market is all over the place. So people are looking elsewhere to put their money into, just my opinion. So you got stuff spiking, and who knows if everything is, 100% legit, but it seems that all major rookies have spiked in all sports. Even I don't follow football really, but I've noticed Montana. I've seen people post that type of stuff. So now it's spreading into 90 Leaf. The Thomases went crazy. Sammy Sosa. So, and then go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
The last point I was going to make is somebody came out with like a graphic. I think it was PWCC, but the top 500 blue chip cards outperform the stock market, the S&P. So when you start looking at things like that, what do you want to vintage is obviously a safe bet. Now you're getting into the 90s, where I think that's the super safe bet. And then the current stuff is literally like gambling. So people like me that I invest in a couple products, I quit the casino to go to the, Louis, Ares and Keston Heroes of the world, and you hope it turns into Mike Trout in a couple of years. So
yeah. Or your Lindors from back in the day, man.
Yeah, that's still a sore subject.
Oh, my bad. No, but Joe, you brought up the thing that popped into my mind too, is that chart from PWCC. And like, if you try to explain that to someone who doesn't know cards or even the hobby, they kind of be like, is the data cooked, or is like, do I really buy that? And it's like, well, if you've been in the game long enough, and you don't even have to like be following the market, you just know that if I have a certain card or a certain like rare card from the 90s or even vintage, and even I guess modern Mike Trouts, we've not seen a dip yet. Yes, Mike Trout is still active, but with vintage, it's been stable. With Griffey and Thomas and Jeter, I mean, it's just steadily gone up, even through the two biggest depressions, well, in 2008 and then now. And then, I mean, what happened after 2001 and 9/11? I mean, it was still, that was a time of uncertainty, not necessarily a depression. So when you see cards outperforming the stock market, I mean, it calls attention. You should at least, listen to it, and not just dismiss it as, And like, you bring up Gary Vee, and like what I know that he's a polarizing figure, and whether you like him or you're not, I mean, if you listen to what he says, I mean, what he's saying about the market, it makes sense. So if you follow and you invest in the certain cards and certain people, then you're going to see a return, whether it's in short term or long term. So, I mean, say what you want about the guy, he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And one of the things Gary Vee actually brings up, which we don't ever really talk about in the card world, is, the hype beasts or whatever they're called, with the clothing, the specialty clothing, people reselling shoes. There's only so much supply of that stuff. There's only so much you can get. With cards, it's pretty much, you're on eBay alone, you can get huge supply of whatever, Zion rookies or whatever. You go on Facebook, people are selling this stuff all the time. So if you have an eye for it, you can turn it around, a lot better than, say, the shoe market or the clothing market, where it's just, super limited. You got to go through all these crazy measures to supply it to begin with. So,
right.
Yeah. And, just the simplicity of what Joe said at the very beginning, the supply and demand. It's like, when you have the same amount of cards, yes, from the 90s and then 2000s, there's just more buyers in the market right now for whatever reason, whether it's because of everything related to the economy being down and what I just theorized, like 5-10 minutes ago, people being more readily available, have more money. There are more people who are buying stuff that we've been following or collecting for 5, 10, 15 plus years. And whether or not they're going to stay is something that, is more debatable than what we see that's on paper already, which is the extremely higher prices, the significant jumps over the past 3-4 months. And even before then, even before March, middle of March, when this all started happening, January, February, Griffey specifically, he saw a jump that was bigger than his Hall of Fame in 2016. And like, Joe and I were like, well, I mean, there's another jump in Griffey prices again. We can't. We're like, a new blood, new collectors, and maybe this is, this is probably the influx of what I and Joe have anecdotally seen, which is we've seen a lot more basketball collectors who aren't necessarily player collecting Griffey. And I know this is specifically focusing on Griffey. I know I won't talk about this the entire time, Griffey, as much as I love him.
Well, that's what you both like.
I'm about to, so
Yeah.
keep going.
Okay, there you go. But that's the thing is, like, when you have these guys, the new blood this time around, whether it's in the first 3 months of 2020 before the coronavirus hit, or even in 2019, 2018, over a longer period of time, like 6 to 8 months, these guys are entering the market just because. And they're like, well, I already have my collection in basketball. Whether it's because they see Griffey was the guy in baseball in the 90s, or the face of the 90s, so to speak. I know people can argue, other people too, but I just go by what the market says, not just what my biased beliefs are. So when you have new collectors in basketball who are already having to deal with the global just widespread popularity of the sport, and they come to baseball and they see, well, who's the top guy in 90s baseball? It's like, well, Griffey, Jeter, you'd think Thomas, Bonds, McGuire, maybe even. And you're like, look at these prices, and you're like, well, why is a Keith Van Horn credentials from 98 outsells a Griffey credentials from 98 in the same year? It just doesn't make sense. But it's because of the globalness of. So when those guys are so used to paying those prices for star players like Tim Duncan, etc., they see Griffey, like, well, why not? And so, and I'm not just saying that all new blood collectors of Griffey who have entered the market recently are from basketball, but when you combine those with the general collectors who were just saying, hey, I want to get back in, or hey, I have more money than I had, 5-10 years ago to spend on Griffey's, or hey, I watched Griffey going up. It's all new blood, whether it's low end, mid end, high end.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Like, me and Rodney, it's like ad nauseum with talking about, oh, Griffey spiked again. We've been saying that like the past 10 years have pretty much tax time. Every year there's a jump. It's like clockwork, maybe not across the board, every single card, and not just Griffey, but like pretty much certain players have a spike. So when I first came back, I used my experience of 2010-ish, 2009, 2010. I'm like, looked at my Beckett. I'm like, oh man, I'm just gonna focus on Griffey. I want to collect again. I'm $40. I'll get every single rare insert. So I start. The first person I encountered was Sean McCarthy. He had a bunch up, and I said, this is only $40. And shout out to Sean, good guy. And right away I sent him a message. I'm like, this is only $40 in Beckett. Why are you asking $300? And then he kind of schooled me over the next year or so on. That's not how it is anymore. And Beckett's useless. I think right now PMG Griffey is still $80 in Beckett. And basically I had to get the knowledge up. Then I started, like, I always wanted a Golden Boss refractor. I just always saw it in Beckett, huge card. And then one didn't come up for like 5 years. When it did, I didn't have the money for it. So it's like that kind of, I think that goes back to anybody that's newer. It takes you years to understand what's actually valuable. And by the time you do, that value is spiked double, triple of what it was when you could have originally had it. So all these new people coming in, on top of, other sports, realizing our stuff is completely undervalued. Like Griffey's best 90s card is probably a mid-tier Jordan, so to them, they're like, we're just going to go buy up all these Griffies, and sit on them. So, or, whatever. Jeter's huge too. And then also Instagram and Facebook have opened up on top of eBay. So you got eBay, Instagram, Facebook, where you constantly have access to cards, and people on Instagram are posting, lots of nice stuff. And that's a big area to buy, sell, trade as well. So I think everything together kind of just keeps boosting the market.
Yeah. Well, my next question for you two is this: is what we have going on right now, is it going to sustain, continue to climb, or do you think it's going to continue with the trend that you both have touched on? There's certain times where it does take a little dip, and then it comes back. What are your opinions, Rodney and Joe? What are your opinions on this sustainability with what we're seeing price wise now? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a combination of multiple factors. It's whether or not the people that are entering the market are going to stay. And it's also dependent upon, the short-term economy, what's going to happen. But when you think about the stability that is there, which is our 90s group, which are, when it comes down to it, us posting cards in the 90s group on Facebook constantly and seeing what else everyone has, and then it grows I mean, there are like at least every day there's close to 10 new requests to join the group. So when everybody sees new people adding in, but then everyone who joins still see, and then they continue to see, it's like a constant live feed. I have this card, that card, this card. Then people are going to, as a group, we're going to push up the prices of the cards out there. And that's just because you're like, oh, I've never seen that card before. Oh man, I saw that card yesterday. Why don't I go buy it? And you have multiple guys, multiple player collectors. That's just naturally going to happen. So while we continue to stay in the group, yeah, it may incrementally increase, because with every year that passes, that's 1 year farther away from the release back in the 90s. And it's one further year of people buying the cards that were rare and are no longer available. But with 90s in general, I mean, maybe this is just me being too biased, but the cards from the 90s, what makes them stand out is the innovation, the design, the actual rarity of the cards, how hard it is to really pull that. And like we still have the effect of, we're all adults. We were all from the 90s in some way, shape, or form, whether you were 5 or 15 in the 90s. You're now 35, 25, 30, 35, all the way up to 40 plus. And you still have your income, plus the people who are coming in new. It's going to happen regardless, because if you collect any star from the 90s, it's just bringing up the nostalgia. That's like the psychology factor. You think about things that bring back memories to your childhood. And if you can get those mementos through cards, then yeah, if you, like I said, it depends upon certain factors. It's new blood, demand, supply, and the stability. We are the stability. The supply is not ever going to change. If anything, it's going to go down and change in terms of going up. Demand will go up because you have more people entering the market with every single year. And then the fourth are the new blood collectors. Whether they come and go, you still have those other three factors from the 90s: supply, demand, and stability from us collectors. And even if it is just us staying in our 90s group, if it's just us, you still have the demand going up in waves, maybe because of the new collectors entering or leaving. But I don't see that happening.
And I also look at the 90s era, like you said, it's some, like the designs now, like top 2020 tops, the inserts are just, you can make it on MS Paint. Like I can make it. I don't even know how to use any of that stuff. Like it's just so basic. You don't, like, nobody cares about it. It's just throwaway stuff. I have this Facebook ad always pops up, and it's art. Like in 1983, if you bought, one of these, I don't know who the artist was, but like 30 grand you paid for it. Now it's worth like 3 million. So in that same vein, people want, it's a piece of art almost to some people. It's, the PMGs they recreate now aren't the same as, the 90s, or like the Flair retro and the basketball. Like they're just not the same. They're bootleg knockoffs basically of what used to be. So even the low end Flair stuff, it's just pretty nice cards, like hats off and, textured and statistical standouts. They're just nicer cards, which is why they still command some, decent money.
Right.
Yeah. And, maybe I want to go back to something you brought up with Joe, when you talked about you came back in the market around 2010 or 2009 is 2010. And that's about the time that I started to seriously get back into it too. I mean, I'd always followed the market, but I mean, back in 2010 and maybe this is kind of the start of what we've been seeing in the last 10 years, if we frame it that way. Because in 2010, the market was dirt cheap for 90s. And I think all of us are aware of that now.
Yes.
But if we go back even further to maybe the early 2000s, maybe right before 2003, 2004, and that's when the game used jersey just really exploded. Those inserts, game jerseys and auto inserts just exploded in 2004. I mean, it started in 2003, but when the shift in the focus from 2000 at the turn of the millennium went from insert design and like rarity of it's so hard to pull a hit in a card. The card companies changed their manufacturing so that there would be guaranteed hits in every box. They reduced the number of packs per box. They reduced the number of maybe like inserts that you would get like from Ultra. Like Ultra every year in the 90s had like 15 inserts. They reduced that because if you think about it, the money that they had to spend every year on a product the most of the production budget, I imagine, went towards securing game used material. So when you're putting in game used material on cards, the design of it is you can't put like a hollow forward die cut refractor with the bat, because maybe you're taking away from the bat or the jersey on there. And that's why if you look at the late 90s cards, those with jerseys on them, it's just the jersey and like a simple picture, because it's like the austerity of just the jersey. So when the card company started to move that way, you're losing the 90s aspect of the design and innovation. And also, you know, certain people like Gene Arena left Fleer. But then that's the focus. Game jerseys and autos. Those were the novel thing in the late 90s, and now they're becoming the focus. By 2004, that's like everything that you saw in there. And then it changed from, it was really hard to pull up to pull anything, and now you're guaranteed like one game used memorabilia, one game used autograph, one rookie prospects auto by like 2005, 6, 7. And that all combined with the lack in design and with all these card companies going out of business, Fleer, Donruss Playoff. I mean, Fleer was bought by Upper Deck, and then Upper Deck went out in 2009. You're left with Topps, and you're left with game used and autos and jerseys. And during that time, from like 2002 to 2009, you want to talk about dirt cheap. I mean, I remember the 90s market was, I think, at its absolute lowest 2003 to 2006. And
Definitely.
I remember from the old Beckett message boards, our favorite, certain people's favorite seller, Samantha Saints. He used to go by like Griffey Jr. Fan 2424 on eBay, even before he changed his name. I remember he could not sell in 2003 a 97 platinum gold Griffey numbered to 30 for $300 or $250. Like it was left up on, I remember like reading the boards, and I'm like, I don't have $250 back in 2003, but it was sitting there just multiple days. And then he didn't, I don't think he sold it. And like, when you think about that, that's 2003. And when I came back to 2009, 2010-ish, in that time, I saved eBay searches. I looked through my emails like the other day when I was, you know, kind of looking forward to this podcast. Griffey PMG Joe sold for like $59.99 buy now. I have it like an old email of a watch list that I saved from 2007.
Wow.
Yeah, the two that stick out for me from that era, the 97 Mirror Gold at auction, the Mirror team, sold for $110. And then a BGS 95 98 credentials, the EX Now, sold for $4,000. You know, so it's like, and back then that was probably super huge, but you know, now that I would kill for that. But you know, it's just crazy. Like a couple years makes a huge difference, because it started upticking like 3-4 years later. Even on one of the boards, I forgot what it sold for, but I think it was a red Crusade, sold for like $200. You know.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, but that's wild. That's the thing. You have to, I think if you're really getting serious about the 90s, you really have to understand, you know, that this is going to keep trending that way. So, you know, we could all be in the same pool and say that we've made the mistake of not buying a card because we thought it was too expensive, you know, and so, you know, that's just something that's really shocking to look back at those cards. And back then, thinking a Griffey for $250 was too expensive. I mean, there was no popularity for the 90s back then, you know, and I think it's at its peak, and it's going to continue to go up. You know, I think you guys ahead there.
And one thing I do want to add is, like, Joe and I are talking about Griffey a lot, and that's because that's who we collect and that's who we followed. But when I speak in blanket statements about the market as it relates to Griffey, when you're a top guy of the hobby, and you have been since the 90s, that impacts everyone else below. So I'm not, just consider that, like, if Griffey's selling high, then that's usually a good like indicator of the market. Same with Jeter. And then like certain players throughout the 2000s, because Griffey was injured throughout the 2000s, his stuff was rock bottom. But the guys driving the hobby then in like the mid 2000s, I mean, they were still lower for 90 stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, in 2010, like, although to like 2015, Griffey and Jeter continued to drive the market. So there's like, it's the trickle-down effect. So yes, I'm just trying to say that I don't want to sound like I'm too biased because I just followed the Griffey market. But usually he's the indicator.
Right.
I think another thing is me and you know Griffey cold. So it's like, I'm not going to speak on Derek Jeter like I'm a Derek Jeter expert. Do I dabble in Jeter and other players? I know the general consensus, but like for super real, like it took me years to figure out Will Clark was big.
Yeah.
I try not to speak as an expert on something I'm not. So
Yeah,
Griffey, we are
great point.
pretty close to experts on, as far as we know. At least me, it's the '90s. Once you get past 2000, up to 2010, I have a good understanding. Once you get to the newer stuff, people ask me, I just tell them I don't know because I don't follow it. So I can't be like, oh, that's $350 because I just don't know. But like in '90s, I think we followed pretty much every card, and we know the same people in the private market and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to give closer to factual information than than trying to persuade somebody otherwise. If like Jeter, his '96 stuff, which people don't like. Some people consider it his rookie because it was his debut year. I don't consider it his rookie card, but prices indicate people do consider it.
Yeah.
Where outside of that, you would think it would follow like Griffey, but it's like a '99 finest gold just sold the other day, $200. A Griffey sold for 800. That's a big gap. But then other stuff, it'll be closer. So it's like, it's kind of, if you're not following the Jeter market over the years, it could be tough to really pinpoint, what it is. But overall, I've seen Jeter doesn't sell close to Griffey past '96. It's kind of like hit or miss depending what the card is.
Well, I think you have to. Sorry, Rodney, real quick. I mean, you have to start with Griffey. It's just like if you're getting into basketball, who's the guy you're going to judge? Like, oh, I like '90s basketball. You go to MJ. I mean,
right.
It's just automatic. If you go to football, you'd probably go to, Tom Brady for now, back then you look at, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Barry Sanders, those guys. Any sport in hockey, Wayne Gretzky. I mean, that's a given. So I think you have to start with the guys that are selling at the top of the line because that's going to be your gauge, for where you're going to go. Before we hop into a list of the then and now, just kind of take some comparison. I mean, do you guys feel like, you mentioned Jeter, do you both feel like once he gets the Hall of Fame, it's going to be like a 1-1A type situation with Griffey and Jeter? Do you feel like they're going to start getting close in price, or do you think Griffey's going to maintain his, being on the top step, king of the hill?
I mean, I don't know. Because like Joe said, like we're not experts on the Jeter market. We both follow it very closely, and we both know a lot of the high end and not even the high end Jeter guys. So, we've met a lot of Jeter guys over the years, and like when I ask them, like what spike is going to happen, some of them say, or others are like, yeah, I will. I expect to see something, but they all they had to help me understand why his '96 stuff. Not just mirror golds, but like his '96 raves, like Joe said, it's '96, some into '97. His autos from Leaf signature in '96 and '97, they're crazy high. And yes, anything from '96 is mirror gold year. Yeah, of course. Jeter has the two highest selling cards in the history from the '90s. He has a '93 rookie SP, PSA 10. It was like over 120K, if I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it was around there. There was a couple of them that sold, but one of them was around 120.
Yeah, and then of course you have the Jeter, the mirror gold, over 200K. But then when you move into 96, 97, 98, 99, like the normal stuff that we love to see from those years in our group, like Star Rubies, Credentials. Cool. Yeah, he's number 2, but he doesn't. I don't consistently seeing him outsell Griffey. Even his PMGs, like the 98 PMGs and the Credentials right now are like on fire. But I mean, did the Jeter PMG from 98, because of that background, I think that's like one of the rare ones outside of 96 that could push Griffey like 1A, 1B. Right. But like I said, those are outliers. But when it comes to his Hall of Fame, like he's going to get a bump just because he's Derek Jeter. I don't know if that'll be higher enough to push him a consistent level 90s across the board to Griffey, because I think another factor with Jeter is his prime years were from 2000 to 2000 and I don't know, arguing with stats like 2006, and that was when Griffey's market was absolutely tanked. And Jeter was the one driving the market. But 2000s cards are a lot different from 90s cards. So maybe that's something else that I don't understand yet either with Jeter. But yeah, he'll get a bump. Close to Griffey, we'll see. I don't know.
What do you think, Joe?
I mean, overall, the Hall of Fame inductions to me, I feel only really affects lower tier guys.
Okay.
Like who was like Edgar Martinez. He got inducted, his rookies blew up. Griffey, I didn't see a super spike when he got inducted. I saw a natural progression, but there was nothing like doubling up.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I think Jeter's already super insanely popular. So you might get his boost on his rookie stuff, but overall, I don't think it's gonna like shoot through the roof. I think that's a misconception with the Hall of Fame, but I mean, I'm sure somebody's got. I don't even know how to make a spreadsheet, so I'm sure somebody's got some information out there that can trump my, what I think. But
well,
I don't think he'll outsell Griffey overall. No.
Well, and again, Griffey, like MJ, is the face of the '90s for baseball. I mean, he when you think of '90s baseball, you think of the backwards hat. You think about the home run stance right after he launches one and he drops the bat and just looks at it. I mean, he's the guy most baseball fans from the '90s, our era as kids, should think about. I think, it's just clear cut. So it makes sense why he's at the top. But let's take a look at. I think it's interesting to take a look at what the '90s was like right when it started to drop off a little bit, like Rodney was saying, game use started to become more prevalent, and what that looked like as far as 10 most expensive, most collectible players, and how that's changed to now. So I just made a simple little document here, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So we take a look at this list right here. Let me scroll up a little bit here. So back in 2000, you had Mark McGwire at the very top, followed by Ripken, Jeter, A-Rod, and Griffey had dropped all the way to 5th because, like you both said, he was on the Reds. He had some injuries. He wasn't doing what he was doing in Seattle at that time. So he completely dropped off the face of the earth. And then, of course, Nomar was doing very well. Chipper, Sosa, Frank, and Piazza. Start with Joe. What's the most surprising thing beyond Griffey that you see on this list of 2,000 most popular players?
Oh, hold on.
Oh, good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
My AirPods keep disconnecting.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So what I asked Joe is where's your biggest surprise on the then, and even looking at the now list? I mean, what's the biggest surprise that you see here?
I mean, McGwire was huge because of the home run race, and it really wasn't coming out that he was on, doing any supplements yet. A-Rod was huge in the back. I remember somebody just posted a PSA 10 Phenoms. I think it was Brant. But I remember that card was $400 raw. A-Rod was on fire. I remember buying boxes of 94 SP just to, I wanted to pull his rookie, his die cut.
Right.
Nomar is actually kind of coming back now. His popularity is coming back up, and a lot of people are collecting him, which, I can understand he was a good player. Ripken, I think, is the biggest one from then to now that kind of like his value used to be huge, and then he kind of softened a little bit. It's not like he's cheap, but he's definitely way down from where he used to be.
Right. What about you, Rodney?
So when we would take this list, like, just to give the background, Joe and I talked about this list. Like, you created the list, but Joe and I talked about this just based on what we were seeing. Because back in the Beckett, and then what we saw in the market, like 2000s, like, you still followed the Beckett. And if we go down this list, McGwire was $4, Ripken was $3, Jeter was $3, A-Rod was $3, Griffey and Nomar were $2.50. I know Sammy Sosa was $1.50, or I'm sorry, between $1.50 and $2, and Frank Thomas was $1.50, so he was lower than Sam. I think Sosa was closer to $2.
Right.
So that's where we get these. This is just a regular base card from, like, I don't know, Upper Deck, Fleer.
Right.
So, like, the most surprising thing on that 2000s list to me was that Nomar. Like, looking back, like, if you pull out a Beckett from 2001, you'll see Nomar at the same price as Griffey, right behind Jeter and A-Rod, but more than Frank, who had already established himself like the entire decade prior with multiple MVPs. The strike shortened season, he would have won MVP again there too.
Right.
There was a home run race that could have gone on with him and Griffey and Matt Williams. But Sosa, that's not a surprise. Like, seeing him up there, that was because of in 2000, he was still riding high off of his 98 home run race. And then, I mean, him and McGuire still, everything people forget is like they hit 60 home runs in the following years too. It wasn't just in 98. Well, they'll talk about that in the documentary. Right. But like A-Rod was on fire, even when he got signed with the Rangers.
Texas,
yeah, I know it's a sore subject for you, Matt, but
whatever.
he was driving, him and Jeter were driving the hobby. Obviously we didn't know anything about McGuire, so we thought that he was going to continue. Ripken was he was the man. Like everyone, like from 95 on, he consistently booked higher than Griffey.
Right. Most respectable guy in the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Just his persona is what driven.
Yeah, exactly. And then like what Joe said, I mean, I know that maybe this is kind of jumping ahead, but he brought it up about Cal Ripken. Like his market is not what it was 5 years ago. And I've spoken with Barry a lot. And he's one of the resident Cal collectors here on the Facebook group and even back on the FCB boards. And he just explained like there's guys that a lot of the high end guys sold off, and when they sold off, they sold to like maybe one or two people, and then for whatever reason, there's not as much new blood coming in. Yeah, I know we have in our group, we have Chuck, we have Andy, we have David Smith, some other guys. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting your names. They are. They're driving the market. Of course, I forgot Will Spence. They're driving the market, but when you see a Cal Golden Anniversary refractor that's gem from BGS go for under 1K, I mean, that's alarming to me. If I were I'm like, what? Cal Ripken outsold Griffey for all of the 90s and through the 2000s, but now his stuff is going down. It's because when you have the big guys out of the picture. Mm-hmm. And then you have they all have a lot of what they already are searching for. And then there's not any new blood. You're asking about earlier, the question about me, is this market going to sustain? It'll sustain with the people that you have currently, plus new blood, plus demand. For whatever reason, Cal's demand is not as high as it was 5 years ago.
Right. I mean, Joe, do you think that's a big reason why the Griffey has stayed so high, or why Griffey's prices have stayed so high? Because all the new people coming in, they just go right to him first, right from the get-go?
Yes and no. Well, one side note on the Cal thing, like I just sold the 98 credentials, numbered to 92 for $700. So like the set matters too. So I don't know if people look at like Bomb and Chrome as substandard or what, but like you said, it is alarming that only got $900. And then with the regard to new people, for as many people as me and Rodney have crossed paths with over the years between groups and right now and Facebook, Instagram, a lot of my eBay sales, and when I'll list say 100 Griffies, most of the names I've never even recognized before. So it is a lot of people that either they're not on social. Like there was a guy from California. Anytime I post something like every couple of years, like last year was a 93 PSA 10 refractor, I get messages from him. So he's either older and doesn't have Instagram or Facebook, or he just checks eBay. So I think there's like a lot of people out there that just aren't. They only have the eBay to really see what's big, and we sell a lot of stuff privately and through all these different channels where when it does hit eBay, it kind of goes for a larger amount. But just another side note, we kind of left off Barry Bonds. I think Bonds was probably up there too in the 2000s with the home run chase, and he was better after 40, and the big couple of years he had. So
I think 01, obviously he just spiked like crazy. But I mean, you're looking at 2000. Honestly, looking at the prices, you look at a top 10 insert, like for instance, Established from Mystique, or holographics from Ionics. I mean, he's not in either of those. Like he wasn't in a lot of those sets until post 2000. And that's something that you guys were talking, I'm looking at this list. A big reason for a lot of these guys being higher is they were in more insert sets. They were more collectible for people. Some of those uniquely designed sets they were in, some weren't. So, that's
Matt,
I think.
Take a look at your back. Do you have a Beckett from 2000? You see that 2001 yet? Yeah. Where's Bonds at go to like Upper Deck?
So 2000 Upper Deck. Okay.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's a kind of a glaring omission.
Well,
looking at this list, but
I mean, I was kind of on the spot. I was trying to look up stuff real quick to come up with names. I couldn't think of everybody at first.
It really is lower. So if we're looking at,
what is he at? Is he below 150?
Yeah, he's $1. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. So that's why. Okay. So then
He's not in there. Yeah. I think that was going to be my next question. What's the biggest disparity? Bonds has to be it.
I think Frank Thomas. I think how good Frank Thomas is, for what he sells for now, I think he should be like second or third, at least under Jeter, and he's not. I think Bonds and A-Rod have come back up because A-Rod's been all over. As soon as he got the hosting jobs, like on ESPN, he's likable.
Exactly.
He's personable. He's a nice guy. And then same thing with it's kind of why Griffey maintains, because he's he's all over the MLB network, and they've come out with some that Mariners thing where they show the 95 season and such.
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think Thomas is the biggest disparity from then and now.
I agree with that. And, going back to what you were saying, Joe, about just the presence of people from now and then. A-Rod has rehabbed his image, and just like significantly, because whether you like him on Baseball Tonight, he's relevant. You see him in the broadcast booth every Sunday when games are still being played. And then, his marriage to J-Lo, you can't deny that fact. He is staying relevant now. He's reaching out even more people that didn't, or maybe even forgot about him or didn't even know about him. Like Griffey's an ambassador for MLB. He's on MLB. He was on MLB The Show 2017. He's a photographer. He stays relevant in the Seattle area. And like when you're the global ambassador for MLB, then that's going to help your cause. Like the inverse of that is people like Barry Bonds, like who don't stay there. Him and McGuire are pretty much out of the public because of so much scrutiny that they received, but their cards are going up. And like with Frank, he's also on Fox Sports 1. He's in the eugenics commercials, and laugh about that. He's supposed to be relevant, but like he almost gets forgotten because he was the guy in the early to mid 90s, whereas towards the late 90s, he started to, I wouldn't say tail off in his career, but he wasn't as popular as he was in the early 90s. It was Bonds, Griffey, Thomas, and Will Clark, Matt Williams. It's crazy because like three of those guys are all from West Coast, from the Giants. Right. But yeah, Frank, he didn't get any love currently right now. But Bonds has seen obviously a big jump because I think people are just either whether it's they're relaxing on their stance on steroids and everything and whatnot. But he is like, you can't deny what his cards are going for.
Joe, can you touch on this? Somebody posted a comment, and you and I chatted about it before the podcast started. But can you comment on this right here? No More outsells a lot of the guys on the right. You and I had chatted about that. Why is he not on that list?
He's not on that list because it's certain cards. Like people, if you just had a number to 50 Nomo, and I've known this from extensive experience, is like if you listed something from Pacific, you're gonna get $10 for it. It's the stuff that's super rare, the Marigolds, Platinum Golds,
97 Legacies.
The Legacies are huge. SPX Grand Finale. But once you start getting into lesser inserts, even number to 100, it's kind of hit or miss. I remember a couple of years ago, I bought a bunch of Standing Gold Deliver Reds. And I bought a PSA 10. Nomo was a PSA 10. And now I realize I knew how hard they were to gem because they get stuck to the back of the board. So they have paper gloss on the back, which is considered normal. And it was a pop one. There's only 25 of them. It sold for $300. So if we're talking I think these lists are more based on consistently overall than outliers. While Nomo does have a significant amount, and you could put Chan Ho Park into that, it's not across the board. Of everything. So,
and the one thing I want to say to that is like if you look at Will Clark, like some people that may be surprising to, but it's not surprising to the Will Clark collectors. They're diehard, and they like again on specific inserts, Clark blows people out of the water,
including Griffey.
Blows out Jeter. Including Griffey, including Jeter, and that's just how it is. Like they are pockets. Every circle of collectors is different. But some have higher potential for certain inserts, like Joe just said with Nomo and like with Will Clark.
Well, like that Thunderclap gold medallion, I'm like the price of those Will Clarks astounds me because for a guy that doesn't have the knowledge of what his cards consistently go for, I remember seeing that on an ended auction. I'm like, what is going on with this card? And then once you find out just how diehard those collectors are, it makes sense, But looking at the list now, is there a player that you see that is going to continue trending up on that now list? Is there one that you see that will go beyond where they're at now?
I mean, me personally, I mean, Griffey is going to continue, and then Bonds and A-Rod are the two that I think will steadily keep climbing without, like rapidly. I think they keep moving up, and it's harder to get some of their rare stuff. And the others, I think, will maintain. But I mean, Thomas, again, is still surprising that he doesn't command more across the board. Obviously some of his stuff can sell well, but
right.
when you compare it to like the Griffeys and the Jeters, it just seems, low to me. Like his 97 row zero, it sells for like $250, $300, and Griffey's is like $3,000.
Right.
So it's a pretty large gap.
Yeah, well, and that's something to consider for me too, because I have to look at, what should I expect to pay for something, and with guys like A-Rod and Bonds, and you kind of still don't know. Whereas you guys could see a Griffey Rose Zero flare pop up, you both know where it's going to go. Like there's no like it could go for this or could go for a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah, to add to that, yes and no on some Griffies. Like if they don't show up, pretty much the timeline is over a year to 2 years. If it doesn't show up, I don't even guess. I'm just like if I want it, I throw in a stupid high bid and hope I win, because again, every couple of years it changes. And like Rodney had mentioned, like with Will Clark, some inserts you just don't know. Some players outsell it's not even across the board. You can't just say, the PMG is the same for this player and this player. Like Pedro just sold for $1,200. If I had sold that and I was a buy it now guy, I would have probably listed it for $150 at best offer. So some players you just don't know, and you don't know who needs it, and the new blood in the market.
Right.
Because the Pedro guys might say, "Hey, Pedro should be up here because he probably outsells Piaz and Chipper in certain sets." But again, some of the stuff doesn't, like Nomo and Chan Ho Park. You don't see enough of their stuff come up. It's very sparingly. Where Griffey, it's kind of always you see stuff up on at least on eBay for sale.
Well, he's in every set, So yeah, go ahead.
If you think about like what you see now, it's just like that list is what you would see. That's consistent sales, like consistently across the board. Yeah, you're gonna have your pockets, but that's generally what you would see. And I think like you were asking, the other question you asked was who's the guy with like most potential. And I mean, well, first I laughed. I'm like, oh, here comes the hype train from Joe and Rodney. But it's like, I promise you.
I know you're going to say too. Say somebody different.
But I mean, I'm surprised to see Bonds where he was 2 years ago. It's where he is now. And the thing is like, I'm surprised. And like Joe said about comps with Griffey's, anything beyond like 2 years ago or even 1 year.
I'd say a year. I give you that.
Yeah. That's not relevant anymore. And you're pretty much going to have to see that now with Bonds and A-Rod specifically. And now McGuire, what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
Definitely. When you have when you have the like the spike, and then you're thinking, is this going to be an establishment of a new norm or not? But regardless, you just need to think, okay, I can't compare what it sold to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Even if you can't find a previous comp on a card, you just have to go with it. Like Joe said, he's like, you just throw a high bid on seeing where it falls because you just don't know. And like with those guys, you really don't know. Yeah, you're going to see Jeter and Griffey naturally increase over the years. Chipper too, Piazza we're starting to see a little bit more of as well. But with McGuire and A-Rod and Bonds, it's like those are the guys that, from experience of what Joe and I have seen with Griffey, that 1 year from now, who knows what it's going to be.
Right.
Because we think it'll go for there, and then bam, something like a mirror gold drops like from 96, and like with Allen when he got that, he set the new previous high, the new high for that card. Yeah, and I'm like, that's awesome. Good for him that he owns it, and then also good for the bonds market. Yeah, a lot of those people missed out on it, but it's like, dude, oh sorry, Joe. It's like that's the new market for bonds, and then that has a trickle down effect, what we talked about earlier. So that's good for the market.
And I want to add to
No, go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
I'm just gonna add to the Mirror Gold bonds. So like basically the whole set has come out minus the Griffey and the bonds. And I was talking to some people, they haven't seen the bonds, and I don't think it's ever public surfacely
Same.
public. I can't talk right now, but it hasn't come out in like a decade or ever on eBay. So it's the first time it's made publicly. Because I went for it and I'm like, I've never seen it. It's you know, you might never see it again. Who knows? The same thing with the Griffey. And you know, on these type of things, I don't like to speculate price. Usually, like there's some guys throw, Griffey would get 65,000 at auction. I'm like, hey, you know what? If it does, good for that. But you know, I can't see it. But there's certain things I've realized like you need to put at auction, and certain things that are good for a high buy it now to field offers. For instance, like a Will Clark, his 98 Century Marks autograph, 98 Donruss Century Marks, one sold for $500. I found one cheap, put it up for auction. I think it got like $80, but yet somebody probably would have still paid that 500 if I just left it up there, you know. And then I did another one where his studio, 96 Studio press proof, the silver, it sold for $200 because I put it up for best offer. It might have been 300 even, and a Griffey's only like $150. So I mean, that might be a conversation for the future, but just like researching comps and stuff, it's not the Bible. You have to kind of know your way around, like how it was sold. What time of day, who sold it, what time of day it was sold, the title, you know, stuff like that. So
you'd almost have to have all these guys have the same insert, like multiple of the same insert listed at the same time to kind of get an idea if you wanted, but that's never going to happen. But I'll go to you first, Rodney. Name a player not on the list on the right side that you think has the best potential to make it and overtake someone in the top 10 list there. Give me a guy that you feel is undervalued or somebody that could see a boost in popularity in the future. Because Tyler
it's
Greg Maddux, and I'm like, he's the only pitcher I'd see that, or him or Randy, but I don't know.
No, I mean, this is kind of, I mean, I'm cheating because the name was already mentioned. Joe brought him up. Pedro Martinez, just because of what you've seen in his high end stuff. I mean, I would expect that this other stuff would at least continue. And I mean, Bagwell is one guy who's not on that list. He was like a staple from the 90s, and he's already in the Hall of Fame. I don't know much about his market.
Right.
And then I'm thinking also about like who other 90 stars from that are Hall of Fame. Like you have Tony Gwynn, but Tony Gwynn's market has never really been strong. And I don't know enough about either of those two markets to think, but I just go by what I've seen with Pedro. And I mean, his stuff outsells Piazza. I know that for sure. Whether he would approach Chipper, I don't know. I mean, Joe and I talk a lot to Bruce, like kind of individually and just learning about the market. And we know we see a lot of a flood on the Chipper, Chipper on our page because there's a lot of Chipper guys. But I mean, Bruce tells me how it is. He's like, he goes, it's not as strong as I would hope it has been because he has there have been so many guys from the Chipper collectors that are the Chipper collecting Chipper from over the years that are no longer in the market anymore. And again, I'm not discounting what you already see. You still see the popularity of guys collect Chipper. It's just the prices weren't what they were expecting to be or what they were when all these stuff were selling off. And for a guy who's about Hall of Fame and 90s, he was a staple name in the 90s. I would expect Chipper to be higher, but potential, I just keep it with Pedro and what I see.
What about you, Joe? What do you think?
I mean, somebody could arguably put over a couple of these guys, Vlad Guerrero.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of his rarest stuff really sells really well, even better than Piazza, Chipper. So I think he's the guy you could put on this list. I sold a couple cards where they're like $100, like his Gold Dome holographic. Just threw it up at auction, got $100. So I think he could overtake a couple of these guys even right now. And just to point out this isn't gospel list. This is kind of our, rough opinion and, overall sales. I'm sure each of these guys have something that would sell, bigger than maybe the guy above them, but just a general list. So.
Right. Well, I think for me, as not being as versed in on the market as much as you guys have been, because you've been doing it for so much longer. When I'm looking through my Beckett, I think a huge factor has to be and like Jean, we talked about it with her, and she's mentioned when they would make an insert set that was 10 deep, so only 10 players made it in there, they would take the 10 best at the time, most collectible, Kramer's Choice, even that list. So a lot of these guys were just in so many inserts, you know, I mean, so there's so many more of them to go get, you know what I mean? Whereas you look at a guy like Pedro and Vlad and you know, even Will Clark, there's not as many of them to go get. So I just think that maybe influences a little bit, you know, there's not as many refractors and so forth to go picked up of, you know, inserts as there is of Griffey and Jeter and the other guys. So, but yeah, awesome. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, you know, and fast forward 2-3 years from now and see where this list is, you know.
Yeah, and you know, maybe this is not necessarily relevant, but I think about Ichiro and Pujols. I mean, yeah, they're not 90s guys, but they both came in 2001. And then I think about what is the potential for them compared to the 90s guys, because it's not an overlap that's clean, but like in general, Pujols is his.
Oh,
he's gone.
Oh no! Oh no! Well, we'll keep going. He'll come back. Right. I wonder if he might have died. But I mean, you've kind of. Oh, there he is.
He's back.
That was fast. Nice. All right. So, what were you saying about Ichiro and Pujols, Rodney?
I was just saying about Ichiro and Pujols. Like, I think they both have great growth potential.
Nice.
I mean, Pujols was like the best hitter in the 2000s, right. And you could say the same thing about Ichiro. Ichiro has that global effect, but their stuff is relatively affordable compared to some of the 90s prices of the star players. And I know it's a new decade, but then like I wonder if those guys could outsell some of the guys from the 90s in the lower tiers. But
I mean, though Joe, go ahead, Joe.
I was saying relativity makes a difference because Mike Trout is the greatest of this generation, but Pujols, for what he did over his career, like you could get his gem bomb and chrome, which, you know, there was only 500, but all 500 didn't even get released. The autograph, like $20,000. Where if that was Mike Trout, it'd be like $1 million, you know. So it doesn't always add up. But just because kind of he's still producing pretty well, but he obviously is not in his prime anymore. But that's why I was always hesitant on Trout, because Griffey started off the same projection, you know, up in 12, 13 years of performing great, and then injuries, and then he just bottom fell out. So
yeah,
well, you just never know.
I am curious. You touched on it already, Joe, about Hall of Fame not giving a big boost. Well, do you think once Ichiro and Albert get into the Hall of Fame that they might actually see a bigger boost than some of the 90s guys, because maybe they're kind of sitting in that generation of players that people overlook, because the 90s, because of basketball, has been really brought up to the forefront, and then you jump ahead, you're either collecting 90s or you're collecting now, you know, Trout players and you know, some of the other big guys that are still playing. I think Ichiro and Albert are just kind of passed over more than the guys that we collect are the modern guys. Do you think the Hall of Fame might get them into the collectors' minds more when that happen?
I still think they sell well. I don't exactly follow Ichiro and Pujols that hard, but they still do sell pretty well. It's not like they're dirt cheap, but I think it might give them a little boost. But Ichiro is, you know, when you have the overseas market, it's a completely different thing. That's why Nomo and Chan-Ho Park sell so well.
Right.
And what's even more surprising is a lot of their buyers are from the U.S. I've only had to ship a few overseas packages on stuff I sold from them. So I think Ichiro will always sell well.
Right.
You know, and hopefully Pujols gets a boost from the Hall of Fame, because his values compared to what I think they should be are low.
Right.
If you compare him to like a Mike Trout, who is astronomically in another world right now. Like I bought a Trout, you know, not even a month ago, went up like almost $2,000. And I just, I was going to flip it like, you know, a month ago, and it just been sitting there. I forgot about it. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. The stuff goes up weekly. So he's on a whole nother plane.
What was that? What did that card sell for? There was an article published about it. It wasn't like a blue refractor auto or something of Trout. What was that price?
It was the 2009 red, numbered to 5.
Yeah. Okay. So 900K.
Yeah, 900K.
Yeah.
It's just so funny to think that I watched the box breaker when I was younger, Chris Justice, and he broke a box of that, and he pulled the blue refractor auto Mike Trout when it first came out, and I remember him saying, "Who's this guy?" And he kind of threw it aside. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
Well,
prices are out.
yeah, his base auto was like $9 when it, when that product first came out. So.
Oh man,
Yeah.
well, if only you could see into the future. My goodness. But I mean, all of the card collecting community has noticed that. I mean, we're at I think our highest peak that it's ever been at. Would you both agree that this is the most expensive it's ever been in general, as far as some of the big time, the Jordans, the Trouts, the Griffeys, the Jeters? I mean, this is, overall, I think the highest that we've seen.
I don't know, because like, for example, in the late '90s, I was like not even a teen, I wasn't even in high school yet. 98, 99, I was like going into high school. But the mirror golds from 97, Pinnacle certified, which we now know are they're not nearly like what they were in 96, but everyone thought that they were in 97. They thought that they were the print run of 30. And I believe they were booking for thousands of dollars. And I don't remember the 96 mirrors when they came out, but I remember they booked for so high. But I don't know the relative, like $2,000 back in the late 90s, like what is that now? But that's what Beckett was saying, and it's not necessarily what it was trading for, maybe privately. That's the only reason why I say I don't know, because I don't know what it was trading hands publicly or privately. But within like every year that's passed since like 2015, has been like a new established high for Griffey, for Jeter, well now even for Bonds, McGuire, A-Rod, and Thomas. Like, I think it is, but I don't know for certain if this is the highest of what we've seen. But yeah, Jordan, yeah, Kobe, yeah, LeBron, yeah. I mean, you just look at, you think about LeBron's exquisite RPA and number to 99.
Oh man, holy grail.
When that came out in 2003, and like even through 2003 to like 2006, like it was still like, I think, a 5-figure card. And now, I mean, who knows what what do you think that would go for, Joe? Like,
what card?
Yeah, the LeBron RPA 2003 rookie auto, rookie patch auto.
One just sold for like BGS 85 for 200. Yeah, 200K. No. So
like that's the highest that card's ever sold for LeBron. I mean, Kobe's stuff is also incredibly high. Same with Jordan, even more so now at the Last Dance. So yeah, I would think that it is. I just don't know what it was trading for back in the 90s in terms of baseball.
Well, individual cards, I think it's the highest. I think overall market was probably the 80s, because they said there was billions of dollars going around. Everybody thought everything was an investment. I don't know how much the card companies are making now, but individual cards, secondary market, I think it's now. Because
good point.
You know, what's his name? Nate. He bought I think it was a LeBron and Jordan, or a Kobe and Jordan dual patch 101.
Yeah.
And he paid $900,000 for it. So like that was the highest recorded basketball sale. You know, so
wow.
This is crazy.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel good about knowing that the market is so high, because it's nice to see that the 90s are getting the love that we all feel like it deserves, especially just, obviously I'm a little bit biased from interviewing Gene, but just how unique all the designs were back then when these companies were competing with each other, and they put out so many incredible unique cards. And it's nice to see that the market for them is so good. You know what I mean? It makes us, I think, as collectors too, we feel good about our investments, you know, and if the bottom fell out, I think all of us would still be happy with what we have, but it's kind of another aspect to collecting that's helps you justify some of the prices. You're like, well, I mean, if it's worth this now, what's it going to be worth down the road if it continues trending the way that it's going, you know?
And plus, like, the current generation is all about game use, patches, which is kind of fading a little bit, but the autograph and the rookie card, like, especially with Griffey, like, we have a big community of 90s guys, but when you go to like a card show, hey, you have any Ken Griffey Jr.? Oh, I got his rookie. I wish I could make a shirt that's saying because that's all I got his Flair rookie. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Like that's why there's like we have the best ever for finding deals as well, because people just don't know. They think it's all junk. They lump
still,
the late 90s with the early 90s.
Exactly.
So, you know, somebody found a ripped in, it was 2000 Pacific, but the vinyl one, he found it for $1 in a $1 box, you know? Like, that's so I always equate that to why card shops died out, because if you can't follow the market on a specific, you know, era of cards, then you're probably not going to do too well. So, you know, that's just my take on it.
And then adding on to that, you know, you have you're talking about rookies being like kind of the staple, and then like card shops going like kind of the wayside because they couldn't follow the market. And I just lost my train of thought. Anyways, forget about it.
No, I'll fill in the gaps with you until you come back. Like when I went to a show recently, and then like 80% of it was recently, as in like before Corona, but like 80% of it was stuff I'd literally just throw in the trash. But like all like stuff you'd see at like a 90s flea market, like the 87 sets, like the mail-in ones. It was just a bunch of junk, and they're like, "Oh, you can't make any money in this hobby." And it's like, like you just gotta, like, I don't know, research more or do something. That eBay exists, you know.
Yeah.
At this point in time, if you don't know about eBay, you probably shouldn't be, you know, in business. But
you remind me of what I was gonna say, Joe. It was like going to the card shows still, like within the last 3-4 years, and even the National last year, you go and you see like, hey, do you have any Griffey? What are you looking for? Griffey? Like, oh, okay. Well, what year? Like, what kind? I'm like Griffey 90s. I'm like, okay, I got something over there in the like the $5-10 box. I'm like, okay, thanks. And like someone in our group posted about like the junk era. They were saying like it went through like the
late 90s. I think I saw that.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, like you are the people I run into at the card shows that are still thinking from 90s flea market mentality. Like, oh, okay, this is I'm like, it's not the junk era. Like late 90s is not junk era. But when I come across someone who thinks that, then guess what? Yeah, I'm going to find $1 wild vinyl number to 10 proof like Dan found at the National the year that he went. Or like we're going to find stuff rooting through the dollar boxes. And then like that post the other day, like what's the best score you found? Like, yeah, those are few and far between, but there are so many guys, even at the National now, last year when Joe and I, well, all of us were there, they just don't either. They focus on vintage or modern. And I'm not faulting for what they sell. They're selling what they know, but they just don't think that anything from the 90s is worthwhile. And I'm like, okay, if you don't know that, then I'll buy this card for X number of dollars, and then I will be happy because it's not necessarily the value that it would if I wanted to resell it on eBay or privately to someone. So.
Well, I will say this: the one of the nicest cards I've ever seen that's in my collection is the 99 star rubies. And I got to talking to the seller that I bought it from, and he's a younger guy. He was like 19, 20 years old, and he said, "I said, where did you find this? You know, it's crazy, amazing card." He said, "Well, you won't believe this, but I went to a flea market and it was sitting in a $1 box, and I thought it looked cool, so I just grabbed it and then I threw it in my box of cards and forgot about it for a year, and then I thought I'd list it." So those cards exist out there still, again, because people for some reason don't see the value in them. And I'm okay with that if you can be the one to find it for $1 at these places. Yeah. I mean, Joe, you've had a little bit of luck going to some of those smaller shows, and like when you found the A-Rod Premier Club and all those cards, I mean, did those people know what they had, or was it another one of those like just some cheap cards in a box type thing?
He was like a dealer, you know, and he sold older. I guess he sold he was more of a vintage guy. He's like, "Oh, I bought this collection." And when I picked out the first group of cards, and he's like, $20. Just made up a number. I'm like, sold. It was like a mirror red in there, like. Oh man! And then I went back through and I picked out some more cards, and it ended up being like $45-50 for everything. But it's like, you know, he didn't even care or seem to know what he had at all.
Yeah,
he didn't even blink. He just sold it. So, I mean,
and you found. Oh, go ahead.
That's like, I'm just gonna say like at physical places, that's few and far between. That's like the best in-person thing I've ever found. So
right.
Yeah. And you found a set of like early 90s refractors too at a flea market one time also? Or no?
No, I don't think.
No. Okay.
That
I
wasn't
think
me.
someone else said.
But I mean, that's
Oh
the
no,
thing,
it
man.
was at a local show. It was I don't know if it's what you're thinking of, but I found a set of 93, 94 finest refractor basketball.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
Yeah,
as
yeah.
the Jordan. Like that's my problem at a show. I don't look things over. Like I kind of like in the moment, like you know, buy it, and then like the Jordan was kind of like suspect. You know, it wasn't as mint as I had hoped. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
But at the National, I will say they had the most 90s stuff I've ever seen at a physical show.
True.
Because there was some guys with a bunch of Jeters, and Griffey was definitely few and far between. That's why, like, I don't personally take the time to go through the dollar boxes. I get like usually I bring people that like don't know about cards. They get impatient or whatever. But like the first day I went, I was just like overwhelmed, like running around.
Yeah.
So when I found the PSA 10 credentials, I'm like, I have to get this because you know I knew.
And like, look at that now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Look at that now. Yeah.
Oh,
If you saw that anywhere for sale, it would be like that. What Joe paid for it was, they would be like, what, really? Okay, done. Like, how do I pay you now? And like, that's what we're talking about. That's, you know, almost coming up on a year ago. And like, not just what he paid for it, but just prices of other cards. Like Matt, you got your quad A-Rod or the 10 quadruple.
You were the first one to see it after I got it.
No chance would that card sell for what you paid for it. Zero chance right now.
McGuire sold for double. So
yeah. So that's why I say, like, I say it a lot in the group. It's just get it now or pay more for it later. And if things with our right now is an unstable time in our economy. But if things continue to just be normal, meaning economy is it can fluctuate up and down, but there's no like global like negative event like this that's going on. And even though right now we're still seeing the hobby thrive through it, but I'm just saying if things continue to just go normal, whatever your definition of normal is around the world, around the United States, around your life,
right?
We have seen increases since 2010. So that's 10 years. So I don't see a reason why that would stop. I'm not going to say that it's going to continue to jump up this way. Yeah, you may level off, come down, but I'm just going by what I've seen. And yes, not everything is going to stay the same, and not everything is going to continue to increase. But until something comes along and changes my mindset, then I'm going to continue to live by that mindset of get it now or pay more for it later. And that's why I share it around like all the time, because I guess some people, like, that's what we're trying to do, knowledge share. We want people to understand that if you wait and you pass, okay, just know that it wasn't like from 2010 to 2020 where you're like, oh, I can just pass on it, come back. It's like the market isn't increasing from 90 stuff since earlier than 2010.
All good points. I mean, yeah, I guess in closing, Joe, do you feel, I mean, you must feel really good about your investments, obviously, but do you feel like, I mean, because Griffey's prices are so high, do you really feel like he's going to keep kind of slowly creeping up, or do you feel like Griffey is being the high guy will plateau at some point?
I mean, I'll give one of my secrets away. I've learned just to, like Rodney says, just buy it because you make up your own price in the future, because half this stuff only surfaces maybe once a year, if you're lucky twice. And a conversation, you know, I had with Chaz a bunch of times is I was looking for a golden Bosch refractor for years, and maybe one or two came up. And then he's new to the game. He comes in and all of a sudden 7 hit within like a few months. I'm like, you're spoiled. Like, they're not going to come up if you don't get it now. Like, you know, maybe somebody died and they hoarded them and they all came out. I don't know the reason, but one guy had like 4, a couple graded ones, this and that. And I'm like, oh, they're not that rare. I'm like, they're rare. You know, they might not be the 30 or whatever people projected, but there's not hundreds of them.
It's the recency bias. You see what he comes out a lot, but then it's like when you've been following the market for as long as some people have, longer than Joe and I have, you're realizing it's like, those are rare, even though people think that just because they've popped up more, like 5 in the last 3 years. Okay, I'll let those people think that, you know, that's okay. But it's like there are people out there who are observing that, like, it's not just what's happened in the past 5 years. It's over a longer period of time since it first came out in '97. So
and to add to like the basketball people coming in, they're way more into condition than I've seen anybody. that's kind of what got me tilted into the grading thing in general. Like, I'll give one example. In 2014, a Row Zero Griffey PSA 10 that I stole got $750, and the raws were probably like 600. So they weren't bringing any premiums. Now the last one sold for 4,600. So that's I don't know the percentage increase. It's $666 a year it made. So just to give you an example, like, people are buying the quality stuff. They want the best of the best. And then, like, I review thousands of cards. It's really hard to get 10s on the 90 stuff. There's a few pop ones. I realize why they're pop ones. If you use a loop, you realize a lot of the stuff has major chips, beat up. Not everybody cares about that, and that's fine. I never cared about grading until a couple of years ago, but I realized you can use it, towards other things where I don't have, like, Rodney knows this. I used to sell everything because, I did other activities, which, I need the money, or I'd get something and sell it off. Now I realize I just buy the quality. PD, you can borrow money off this if you need to. You can use it to further leverage it. Not that I always have to do that, but there's other options with high-end graded stuff, over raw. So that's why I collect what I collect. So
right. Well, guys, I do have to say, I do want to thank you for your knowledge. I mean, you've both been a huge help, just learning about what to expect when certain cards come up. I think that's been awesome. And speaking for the Facebook group, especially, I think you both have done a great job of just kind of educating people on where their mindset needs to be and helping them learn more about the 90s. Because as we have all talked about before, there's so much to learn out there. Like, if you're new coming in right now, you need to spend some time on, I'm a little biased, Facebook Cardpedia. I feel like somebody in here might care about that. But no, I mean, the amount of work that you put in and knowledge that's on that page alone should be, I mean, I've been on there hours and hours just trying to learn. I think you should do your due diligence and spend time learning about the cards and how rare they are, and then going and looking at the market, how often something pops up, what the current prices are. Don't look at 2 years ago, because honestly, as you both said, it doesn't mean anything anymore. 2 years ago, it doesn't mean anything. So, but I just want to say thanks again for just, all your knowledge and being willing to come on here and share some of that with some collectors. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, thank everyone for watching. We appreciate it. Episode 32 was a discussion episode, and we hope that you enjoyed it. And we'll be coming back. I'll be coming back next week with Dave Archer. So look forward to that. All right, everyone, have a good one. Thank you.
Thanks. See y'all.
See ya.